How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, if you text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777, you get the live stream, the show notes, all the links that you need, including the 4 things to know in the afternoon, which you should subscribe to on your favorite podcast app. We've got to talk about a little more the Jeffrey Epstein stuff. This is literary, not theological. Just bear with me. Just let me make this point. My favorite book of the Old Testament is the book of Amos. And Amos is a wealthy plantation owner, we think. And he is commanded by God to go north from Judah to Israel, the northern kingdom, which is very, very, very wealthy. And tell them that they think their wealth is a blessing from God. They've misinterpreted it, that it's not a blessing from God, it's an act of mercy. Because he says God made you wealthy and you thought it was a blessing, and then he made you poor and hoped you would return, and you didn't, and so now you're wealthy again, and this is the best you're going to have it. You are about to be annihilated, and you've misinterpreted your wealth as a blessing. It's actually a mercy because he wants to give you some comfort before essentially eternal damnation. Now, I say it's actually a very fascinating book. My kid is in a great books program in college and had to read Amos. And she says she's very frustrated with it because they couldn't read it theologically. They had to read it as literary. And so she couldn't make some of the points she wanted to make in the class. They didn't work. The professor didn't want them. But just as a literary device, Amos is very good. So is the book of Ecclesiastes, where King Solomon says there's nothing new under the sun. And you can extrapolate that lesson from Amos, that oftentimes the rich think they're doing something right in life, look at their wealth, and in fact, they're not doing things right in life. A buddy of mine told me one time that he never realized when he got wealthy, and he got very wealthy, he said the hardest thing for him being wealthy is being charitable. When he was poor, it was easy to give donations to other people. And when he got wealthy, he's like, no, this is mine. I worked for it. I don't want to give it to other people. What we see in the Epstein files, you thought that was a plug for Hungry for a Day, wasn't it? If you text donate to 33777, you can use your wealth to help others and not be selfish. I crack myself up sometimes. Anyway, the point here is what we see in the release of what we've gotten thus far in the Epstein files is it wasn't a thing about Donald Trump. Donald Trump comes up in the emails leaked by Democrats. But Hakeem Jeffries does too. Hakeem Jeffries, the current Democratic leader in the House of Representatives, Jeffrey Epstein was emailing people, rallying them to Hakeem Jeffries, telling them he was another Barack Obama. They should support him. Yes, it turns out that Hakeem Jeffries was supported by Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein touted him to donors. Jeffrey Epstein wanted to help advance Hakeem Jeffries' career. Not only that, what I think a lot of people probably forgot was Stacey Plaskett is the Democratic delegate from the Virgin Islands. Virgin Islands is American territory. They get a delegate, non-voting delegate in the House of Representatives, but they're allowed to sit on committees. And it turns out that while she was involved in a congressional hearing with Michael Cohen, Jeffrey Epstein was texting her in the hearing, recommending questions for her to ask. That's right. Delegate Stacey Plaskett, in a 2019 House hearing, was texting in real time with Jeffrey Epstein. And there are lots of allegations that she, when she was a prosecutor in the Virgin Islands, protected and covered up for Jeffrey Epstein. There's actually a lot of data that suggests that Stacey Plaskett, the Democratic delegate from the Virgin Islands, was helping cover up Jeffrey Epstein's situation on behalf of Jeffrey Epstein, and then goes to Congress. Jeffrey Epstein, by the way, advances her, helps her, fundraises for her. She gets to Congress and is texting him in real time to try to undermine Donald Trump. In fact, the long-time rumor about Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein appears to be true. The reason Jeffrey Epstein hated Donald Trump, contrary to what the Democrats have said, Jeffrey Epstein, it turns out, hated Donald Trump. Remember, last week the Democrats were saying that Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump were besties, and by the end of the week they were saying, oh, Jeffrey Epstein was a horrible man, but he knew bad characters. Look, he didn't like Donald Trump. Just this wild spin, shifting one way to the next with Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein apparently hated Donald Trump because he knew Donald Trump was one of the sources used by federal prosecutors to go after Jeffrey Epstein. That's right. It has long been rumored by some that Donald Trump was one of the people who ratted out Jeffrey Epstein to federal authorities, leading to the human trafficking prosecution and arrest. Turns out to be true. Now, the side story there is it's because Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump were both looking at the same piece of property, and Trump didn't want to get outbid by Jeffrey Epstein, so he ratted him out to the authorities. There's no saint here. Trump wanted a piece of property that Epstein wanted and needed to take Epstein out of the equation, so he ratted out Epstein. That appears to be the truth of the matter. That's why Epstein hated Donald Trump. But this gets back to Amos and the wealthy. There's that very weird Eyes Wide Shut movie. It was the last movie Stanley Kubrick made with Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise, and probably led to their divorce. I got to tell you, my wife and I went to see that movie because we're like, oh, it's Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. Far and Away was a great movie. Let's go see this one. It was garbage. I don't trust people who like that movie. It was a horrible movie. It was awful. People were getting up and leaving, wanting their money back. It was so bad. It was a horrible movie. And it has these very wealthy people with ritualistic orgies and whatnot. And you can kind of see that the wealthy live in a different world. I am not a super rich person. I know super rich people. I hang out with them on occasion. I have never seen so much open drug use as I have around super wealthy people. Cocaine has come back as the drug of choice of wealthy people. I do not dabble. I do not want. I'm just amazed at how open and brazen wealthy people are when they're around other wealthy people. They can get away with it. I saw somebody this weekend say what the most aggravating thing about the Jeffrey Epstein stuff is that at the end of the day, at the upper echelons of power, the Republicans and the Democrats who attack each other on television behind the scenes, that they let each other get away with all sorts of stuff. And that actually is the problem, is the wealthy, and some of them are partisans, not all of them. The partisans and the nonpartisan, very wealthy people, they live in a different world from you and me. Their children get into elite institutions and they protect each other and their families and they elevate each other. It's one reason there's a big push among the left to get rid of legacies in the Ivy League institutions so that the wealthy kids of the wealthy graduates don't get preferred access to the institutions. The wealthy take care of the wealthy. The children of the wealthy take care of the children. I saw a home for sale in Atlanta, Georgia yesterday. It's like, oh, that's an impressive house. Turns out it's the house of an heir to a family fortune in Atlanta who himself wasn't very good at business and ran his business into the ground, ran his marriage into the ground, and now his mansion is up for sale. And that tends to be the habit of the children of the wealthy tend to not have the business sense. Their parents, and particularly the grandkids, tend to be the worst. You know, with all these family-run businesses, I mean, take Chick-fil-A, for example. Chick-fil-A is a great family-run business. Truett Cathy and then Dan Cathy. Now I think it's Andrew Cathy, his son, and I know the family spent a lot of time understanding, studying, and researching how it is that so many third-generation family-run companies go belly up to avoid that with Chick-fil-A, and they put a lot of thought into it. And the grandson is now running the company, doing a very good job by all accounts, and being very conscious of the fact that he can't take for granted what he has. And that tends to be one of the sources of family businesses being run under, is because the grandfather works his butt off to build the business. The father has seen the grandfather sacrifice so much to get there, so he doesn't take it for granted. But by the time the grandkid comes along, all he's ever known is wealth and fortune, and he takes it all for granted. And so if you have a family-run business, when you get to the third generation, you have to be very, very careful about that the grandkids have got to understand the sacrifices the family made, that it hasn't always been this way, and it can go away. Nothing is permanent. And the wealthy oftentimes, once you get wealthy, there are means within the wealth to stay wealthy. They don't let each other fall. And a lot of them are deviants. They think they are blessed because of their fortune, and they don't understand that this is the best they're ever going to have it. They will not handle the day of judgment well. Now, there's a side note on all of this that's coming about Epstein. He seemed to have many more Democratic friends. He did a lot with Bill Clinton, did a heck of a lot with Larry Summers. Larry Summers comes across looking terribly. A buddy of mine says the owner of the Jets apparently was mentioned in something. He's hoping this brings about the fall of the owner of the Jets. He thinks that's the only thing that'll ever save the team, is getting rid of Woody Johnson on the Jets. He's really hoping there's a strong Epstein tie there to bring that up. That there are clearly wealthy people that Jeffrey Epstein connected to underage women. By the way, I do not think it is a healthy or useful thing to say, well, they were 15, they weren't 8. It doesn't matter. They were trafficked and they were victims. But I need to say something else too here. And I've said it repeatedly, and it needs to keep being said. There are real victims, and many of the people who care greatly because they think they can hurt Donald Trump with the revelations, they don't actually care about the victims. We don't have a list. There's never been an Epstein list. That's always been a conspiracy theory. But there are names. There certainly are people who abused these young women. Why can't members of Congress release that? There's an ad up now with some of the Epstein victims. They hold pictures of themselves at the age they met Jeffrey Epstein, and they want accountability. Why? They're willing to be in the ad campaign. Can we not get the names of who abused them? Can we not get the stories, please? Now, in many cases, it is they signed non-disclosure agreements. I have a request for the United States Congress. I think it'd be a very simple request. To the United States Congress, pass a law that gets rid of the non-disclosure agreements of the Epstein victims. Just pass a law. I don't know if it's constitutional. I assume it would be. Pass a law that says those non-disclosure agreements are no longer binding, and no federal court can be used to enforce the non-disclosure agreements. And should any state court be used to enforce the non-disclosure agreements, all funds to be delivered to that state for any reason whatsoever will be withheld. Pass a law allowing the women to speak, break the non-disclosure agreements. Say they can't be, those non-disclosure agreements can't be enforced in federal court. And if any state court tries to enforce them, those states won't get federal funding. It's time we hear from the victims. Instead of the Republicans and Democrats jockeying for position to smear each other over revelations of the Epstein files, let's actually get the stories of the victims. And the way Congress can and should do that is to go after the non-disclosure agreements that almost every single one of these women signed, being paid a lot of money. Let them keep the money, and Congress pass a law and say those NDAs are no longer valid and won't be recognized in any court in the United States of America. Do that, please. Do that. Let's move beyond the partisan mudslinging here and actually hear from the victims. And here's one of the reasons why that may not happen is what we can learn so far is the wealthy protect the wealthy. And wealthy members of Congress on the left and the right protect each other. Behind the scenes, they're all very chummy. And we should all be aghast at that, and we should all want that to be broken apart. Guys, if you struggle to come up with gifts for family members, I got a suggestion for you, the Cove Pure. I love mine. I wasn't sure I would like it as much as I do, and I really, really, really do. What is a Cove Pure? Well, it's an water filtration system. It's on the countertop. You can get cold water. You can get hot water. It even has a bottle button, so you can get the warm bottle perfect for formula for your baby at night. It's really easy. It's so convenient. I use it all the time in my office. You will love it. It sits on the countertop. It uses reverse osmosis. It gets rid of like pharmaceuticals, fluoride, lead, arsenic. It's the purest water you can get. It tastes fantastic. If you're looking for a great gift for your loved ones or for yourself that they're actually going to use the Cove Pure. I partnered with them. They're giving you a $250 holiday discount with my link, covepure.com/Eric. That's covepure.com/Eric, ERICK. You get $250 off, covepure.com/Eric. The sale is going to end, so take advantage of this $250 holiday discount, covepure.com/Eric. Aaron Rodgers has a slight break in his left wrist. They're doing tests today to see if he can. Y'all, I worry about Aaron Rodgers. I realize it is very random. Again, you never know what I'm going to say. I worry about Aaron Rodgers. It's like all he's got is football. He has shoved out of his life everything in his life not related to the advancement in football that he has. And what's he going to do? It's like he's football's version of Nancy Mace at this point. That woman is deeply unstable. If she loses the gubernatorial primary in South Carolina, I actually seriously worry about her, and I think she is, and she should because she's nuts. She's so nuts that I think the Democrats could actually win in South Carolina if she were the Republican gubernatorial nominee. She's insane, and I just, man, people like that's all they have. They're defined by that. When they lose it, it's sad to watch. It really is, actually. We got to talk about groceries when we come back, but first I got to tell you about Americans for Prosperity. They are around the country advancing common sense conservative solutions. They would love to have you on board. AFPvolunteer.com is the website. They have chapters in every state. I'm on their board of advisors, and around the country we try to engage conservative activists, keep you informed about good conservative public policy, and advance that policy down to the school board and city council level. You can get involved and just be informed, or you can get involved and learn how to be an effective advocate for those policy solutions, how to explain them to your neighbors, even during election season, how to get your neighbor out to vote if that's what you want to do. You go to AFPvolunteer.com, AFPvolunteer.com. Sign up with Americans for Prosperity. Again, they got chapters in every state. They're great conservative people. They advocate common sense conservative solutions. They support school choice, the president's tax cuts, deregulation, permitting reform for the energy industry. So many critical public policies around this country, including the REINS Act that they're pushing in almost every state. Find out more at AFPvolunteer.com. When we come back, grocery prices shows no sign of coming down. I found the clip I was talking about earlier. I just had it mislabeled. Charlie actually did cut it for me. It was my fault. Yes, taking blame myself. Scott Bessent was on with, I think, Maria Bartiromo on Fox News and had this to say about beef prices.
There's also, because of the mass immigration, a disease that we've been rid of in North America made its way up through South America. As these migrants, they have brought some of their cattle with them. So part of the problem is we've had to shut the border to Mexican beef because of this disease called the screwworm. So we're not going to let that get into our supply chain. And again, I don't want to focus on one product. It's a very important product, and we are laser focused on this issue.
Now, just so you know, the screwworm is actually a very real issue, although that's not really the major reason for the beef prices being as high as they are. There actually are some supply chain issues. There are some issues with some of the processing facilities in the country. It's very, very interesting to see Scott Bessent rely on the screwworm issue. Brooke Rollins, the Secretary of Agriculture, was on with me the other day, and I asked her about this issue. So if you haven't heard of this, get ready to hear more about it, because it is a real problem, and it used to be a problem that devastated cattle in this country in the 30s and 40s. It's fascinating how we got rid of the screwworm. So get ready for your biology lesson of the day. The screwworm is the larvae, essentially the maggot of a fly. And it is shaped like a screw and buries itself into the flesh of open wounds of animals and people. It is extremely painful, and for people who get infected, you gotta cut out the screwworm larvae, and it's awful. It's gross. Don't look for pictures. Philip will pass out. It's really disgusting. When the screwworm infects cattle, you kill the cows. We have a program in Central America. We have partnered for years, since the 1950s, with the Central American governments. And it's very important you need to understand this one. Even when those nations did not get along with each other and were fighting each other, they all cooperated on battling the screwworm. There is something called the Pan American Highway. The Pan American Highway runs from Canada all the way down to the bottom of South America. But the Pan American Highway stops at the Darien Gap. It picks back up in Colombia. The Pan American Highway comes to an abrupt end down at the Darien Gap. The Darien Gap is a dangerous part of Panama. It is a very dense jungle. It is where people, when they're desperate to come to the United States, they have to walk through the Darien Gap. And we, for years, made the Darien Gap the battle line for the screwworm. Now, here's how we eradicate it. It's actually very fascinating. So the fly, the female fly that produces the screwworm, only mates once. Once it's done, it goes through a gestation period, and then it dies. So what we do is we irradiate a massive amount of these flies. And most of the flies we irradiate are male. And then we carpet bomb the area. We literally drop the flies from airplanes. The irradiated flies are sterile. So the male fly, it can still mate. It just can't produce live kids. So the male fly mates with the female fly. The female fly only mates once, goes through the gestation period, doesn't actually produce larvae because the male was sterile, and the female dies without producing larvae. It's fascinating biology. We've used it to our advantage to cull the herd, so to speak, and get rid of the screwworm. Well, it's made a comeback. The reason is we haven't been able to get all the way into South America where the screwworm lives. And so we made the Darien Gap the place to control it. The Darien Gap is fairly easy to control. You contain it in that area. There aren't a lot of people there. You drop off the sterilized flies. They mate with the female flies, and the end. The problem is, and this gets to Scott Besson's point, as migrants have headed north across the Darien Gap, thinking they could bring their cows into the United States, they've brought the screwworm ever closer. Some of their cows were infected. They didn't realize it. Takes time for the larvae to populate. They come north. Suddenly they're infected. Now you got screwworms that have moved back up all the way into Mexico. In fact, we've had recent cases about 50 miles south of the border, the American border. So we are re-upping. We're building a multi-billion-dollar massive new facility to breed these irradiated flies even quicker. We've been doing this since the 1950s. The Biden administration started it. They dragged their feet on regulations, which slowed it down. It actually there is a partisan angle here, and that is that the Biden administration dragged their feet and caused problems, but we're back on, and we're going after the screw fly again. So there is that problem. However, that's not really the biggest problem. As those of you in Dodge City, Kansas know, where most of our steak in this country is processed, there are much bigger issues than just the screwworm. And he's kind of overshadowing those issues. One of those issues is related to the supply chain, some of them related to processing facilities, supply of cattle in this country, and also to the tariffs. We were importing a lot of beef. Now we're not. American producers don't want us to import any beef into this country. They see it as hurting them, but it's actually hurting consumers. And grocery prices are continuing to go up. So from Feeding America, which is a network of 200 plus food banks across the country, the price for a family of four monthly grocery bill is up to $1,030. I got to tell you, I do the grocery shopping in my house. My wife doesn't like to go to the grocery store. I can't blame her. She's a little bit immunocompromised with her chemo, so I do the grocery store. Let me pull up my receipt from Publix yesterday. It was $490. Coffee, decaf community coffee for my wife. I'm from Louisiana. If I'm not drinking whole beans, it's got to be community. She wanted decaf coffee, and it was a standard size coffee. It was $14.99. Coffee, the little thing of community coffee, $14.99. Let's see what else was in there. The Flonase, $32, and then a chuck roast. I bought a chuck roast for tomorrow night. It's a several pound chuck roast, standard grocery store chuck roast. $43.52. Let's see, what else was expensive in there? The 4-pack of Kerrygold butter, $11.29. That's right, $11.29 for butter. Now, it was the good stuff. We do get the Kerrygold in our house, but still, $11.29. It wasn't even, by the way, it wasn't even a grass-fed chuck roast. It was just your standard grocery store chuck roast was $43. Now, y'all don't need to know about all my spending habits at the grocery store, but that's a lot of money. I mean, I was kind of shocked at how expensive that stuff was. You should be too. Even the Hershey bars. I did the s'mores things. Bought a pack of Hershey bars, $7.99 for Hershey bars. It was one of those packs of six, $7.99, $8 for chocolate. Chocolate has gotten expensive. I do the grocery shopping in my house. I live in the real world. I go to the grocery store. People talk to me. Rush Limbaugh told me when I got to where I am, I would stop going to the grocery store. No, I just have the conversations. Most people are very nice and don't. Some do. But grocery prices have gotten expensive. $490 yesterday for the grocery store. And $44 of it basically was a chuck roast. It's absurd. So here's my problem. This is the president yesterday, last night, talking about grocery prices.
Much better with this. And again, I go to Walmart and other companies, and in every case, it's about 25%. That a meal, a Thanksgiving meal and surroundings are 25% lower than it was under the Biden administration. That's a big fact. And that
I got to say to the White House team, tell the president to stop saying this because it's not true. How do I? Y'all, everybody gets it takes time to fix the economy. For the president to say that it's 25% cheaper at Walmart, that's not true. Walmart scrapped 6 items from its list from last year to make it 25% cheaper. If you added those 6 items back, it would actually be more expensive. That's not me. That's actually the fact. I'm not making that up. It's true. I don't want the Democrats to win next year, and the Republicans have got to get serious on this issue. And the president rolling back the tariffs, it's kind of an admission against interest that tariffs are making things more expensive, and he's not rolling back all the tariffs. Like, for example, this coffee. I bought this coffee yesterday, $14.99 for coffee, and it wasn't a big bag. It was the standard bag. Let's see. Community coffee. I'm looking it up right now so I can tell you the ounces. Community coffee decaf bag. It is, 12 ounces? What is this? It's the 12-ounce community coffee bag. And it was ridiculously expensive. Now, at Kroger, I could have gotten the same one at Kroger for $7.99. I went to Publix, so it was a little more expensive. I could have gotten it for $7.99 at Kroger. But also, it's on sale for $7.99. It's $11 at Kroger otherwise. It just happens to be on sale right now for 12 ounces. So $11 at Kroger. It's on sale today at Kroger in my area. But otherwise, it's $11. At Walmart, it's $11. I'm looking online. At Publix, you pay a premium, but then it's a wonderful, wonderful shopping experience. $14.99. The president's not scrapping the tariff on Brazilian or Colombian coffee beans because he doesn't like the presidents of Brazil and Colombia. It's a personal issue. We actually need to deal with this issue, y'all. We are going to have the Democrats take back Congress if we don't, and the president's going to be tied up in impeachment investigations. And I don't know whether it's Susie Wiles or somebody at the White House needs to sit down and say, look, you've got to bring prices down on houses. You got to bring prices down on groceries. You got to bring prices down on everything. We have an affordability crisis in this country right now, and tariffs absolutely are part of the problem. You've negotiated these trade deals. Now go back and you'll look even stronger and say, hey, you've all bent to my will, and now I'm going to give you a great deal. 0 for 0. You give us 0 tariffs, we give you 0 tariffs. China, screw you, 100% tariff. I hate to keep beating the drum. I know some of you are tired of it, but I also know people who need to listen. And I'm telling those of you, not you, my audience, but those who know who they are, who are listening in places that it needs to be said, you've got to convince him. You've got to convince him we've got to lower prices and stimulate the economy to mitigate the Democratic gains next year. Indiana is not going to redistrict now. Georgia is not going to redistrict. They can't redistrict. Utah just redistricted, and it's going to help the Democrats because of their nonpartisan commission. Don't give up on trying to win next year. But you got to convince him. Prices got to come down. And that means he needs to stop listening to Peter Navarro and start listening to Kevin Hassett and get rid of the tariffs instead of having Hassett defend the tariffs. Listen to Hassett, who told the president originally tariffs would raise prices. Everything that was said internally behind the scenes is coming to bear. It's time to reverse course, and don't take it as a reverse course. Take it as a win. All of these countries have bent to your will. Now, be the Christmas sweetheart and go 0 for 0, stimulate the economy, and stop the Democrats. We've got to lower grocery prices across the board. Hello, welcome. It is Eric Erickson here, 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I would be happy to have you anywhere nationwide. Ford CEO, have y'all heard about this? This is kind of wild to me. It hasn't gotten a lot of attention. The CEO of Ford says he currently has 5,000 open mechanics positions. Every single one of them pays six figures. And they can't fill the jobs because the jobs require training, and a lot of kids coming out of college don't want to do manual labor. You don't even need a college degree for these jobs. It seems like it would behoove Ford to invest in paid training where qualified hires can learn on the job. And maybe we need an expansion of trade schools in some universities. You know, I go back to my son who toured Samford University. You know, one of the things in the business school is you can learn how to be a stock trader. And if you're of a certain caliber of student, they actually have a fund, and you can buy and sell the stock for the fund for the school, and the fund has grown tremendously. Or the architecture program my son wants to be in is very hands-on and practical, and I wonder if more schools should consider things like that. Like, for example, there's a college near me that has an aviation program, and they actually train students to be aircraft mechanics. We have a lot of vocational schools around the country. But I kind of wonder if it would be worthwhile for, an electrical department at a school. You can do the electrical engineering program, or maybe come up with some sort of other Bachelor of Science program where you're learning on the job how to be mechanics. I mean, you got 5,000 open positions with a starting salary of six figures at Ford. That they can't fill them is a problem, but Ford also might want to consider investing in some on-the-job training too. We got to start thinking differently about this. If I want to start thinking differently about housing affordability when we come back. First, however, I have got to tell you CEO of Ford
about.
says he currently has
Stop. Why am I hurting myself? Because I pushed the wrong button.
I got to tell you about Hillsdale College. If you go to ericforhillsdale.com, E-R-I-C-K, ericforhillsdale.com, you can sign up and get one of 40 classes from Hillsdale for free. All you do is go to ericforhillsdale.com. They've got some great ones for you to choose from. On capitalism, you've got economics classes, chemistry classes, math classes, history classes, political science, literature, and English. There's a great class on C.S. Lewis I would highly encourage you to take if you love C.S. Lewis like I do. I took it, learned a lot. That class is a lot of fun. They're 30-minute video lectures by Hillsdale's faculty. You learn a ton. It's very engaging. And depending on the class, depends on the number of video lectures. You go to ericforhillsdale.com. Doesn't cost you a penny. You don't have to pay anything. You get a certificate of completion when done. And you just learn about a topic you're interested in. They're all designed for people who have a depth of interest, and they fill that depth with a lot of great knowledge. ericforhillsdale.com, E-R-I-C-K.